Okay. Me. Right. Okay. Hey there, creative minds and business enthusiasts. Welcome to Looks Like We Made It, the podcast where we dive deep into the dynamic world of video marketing, content creation, and all things creative. I'm Issy, your guide through this creative journey, wearing two hats, head of production and senior video editor. But I'm not in this alone. Meet the other half of our dynamic duo, my dad Chris, our director and the creative genius behind Howell Media and Howell Training. Together, we're not just a podcast, we're a father-daughter team on a mission to bring you insights, tips, and laughs from the heart of the creative industry. Whether you're a business looking to up your video game or a budding creative hungry for knowledge, this is the place to be. We've got real life experiences, expert advice, and a sprinkle of anecdotes to keep things interesting. So if you're ready to unlock the power of video, bespoke content, and training to achieve amazing results, you're in the right spot. Fasten your seatbelts because this is Looks Like We Made It, where we turn creativity into success one episode at a time.
Hello.
Let's roll. Let's roll.
It.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did you have a good week?
Yeah. Busy, as ever.
Yes.
But nobody wants to know
I think you say that every time, to be fair.
I know.
So,
one week I'm going to say not busy.
I've done nothing at all because when this episode goes out, it would have been Easter. So we'd have been eating a lot of Easter eggs by this point.
Okay.
My teeth will be rotten next time we do this podcast.
Okay.
But so the question that I have today is, why is brand continuity essential in content creation?
Oh, blimey.
This is one where I feel like you're going to hop on that soapbox.
No, my soapbox is firmly under the desk here. I'm not on it at all. So why is brand continuity so important for content output?
Yes, you've just reworded the question.
Yeah, I've just reworded.
So that's a good start. So I think within that, when we say brand continuity, let's break the question down. What do we mean by that?
Well, I think what it means to me is that it's important that anything kind of public facing, anything to do with your look, your feel, your the context of your branding. I mean, it's a big word, branding in itself. It's important that absolutely everything looks and feels right. Because I think that as soon as you go down the route, which all businesses should, which I'll get onto shortly, but as soon as you go down the route of being brand aware or message aware or image aware, however you want to dress it up, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword in reality, because as soon as you do something that falls outside of the rules, the brand guidelines, and again, we'll come on to that in more detail a bit later, it'll stick out like a sore thumb. Mm-hmm. So say as an example, you've got everything really tight. You've got all your design, you've got all your kind of your online user experience, your your colors, your printing, your video output, everything has got a lovely look and feel. And then somebody in the office goes, okay, I'm going to whack something together in some hideous application, and you're going to get a stretched logo, you're going to get pixelated nonsense photos, you're going to get some random colors in there, and instantaneously you undo all that good work that you've been building on over weeks, months and years, and it will make that one thing you make yourself, it potentially trashes everything else. So I think that you need to take these things seriously, and you need to have, in my opinion, almost like a evangelical approach to kind of protecting what you've created.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, it is very important to maintain your brand style and have that consistency, because it's a bit like at the end of the day, your branding is your shop window. It's what people see before they see anything else. And if it's sort of inconsistent or it's not appealing, they're not words you don't want to link with your actual company. You might be a brilliant organization behind it, but this is what people see when they first show up. So I think that having that as it's just as important as any of the other elements of a business, like accounting, HR, sort of just general people management. I think it is just as important, because without it, businesses wouldn't have any ability to function.
But okay, so I'm going to throw a question at you. So why is it important then? So it's you just said it's as important. So why do you think it's as important?
Because if design didn't matter, if branding and style and things like that didn't matter at all, then what would drive us to buy anything as a society?
Everything would. Well,
like if you look back at even like back as far as before the Victorian times, people were still sticking adverts out and still sticking things on blimps and having planes fly over with their names. Like branding or advertising has always been the cornerstone to our entire economy, and that's a big statement for me to make.
That's quite a big statement.
It's quite a big statement, but I would stand by the fact that brand retention. So when you're watching TV adverts, when you're seeing anything visual that's related to a brand, so any kind of advertising, brand retention, so the audience's ability to remember and retain the information that they've seen after they've seen it, is one of the most important things when it comes to advertising.
Spot on. So and it can be quite a subtle thing as well. It can be down to like a simple thing. It could be down to like a colour, and it could be down to an image, or it could be down to just a hint of an image. I mean, where it all began, obviously, was with the red triangle of Bass. So Bass beer needed a way for drinkers who weren't literate back in the day, hundreds of years ago. So they created a logo which was a red triangle. So when people go into a pub and they wanted to buy that specific beer, they didn't need to be able to read. They just needed to be able to point to the red triangle.
And that is incredible, because just think how many how many customers they might not have had if they didn't have that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of I know it's sort of, we're probably explaining things that everyone already knows, but I think it is something that a lot of businesses either take for granted or don't think is essential for them, because we use things like, we say, well, without Coca-Cola, without McDonald's, without Nike, all these brands that you recognize just by looking at even just a colour or an inch of a logo, that actually some businesses that aren't those brands would go, well, I'm not McDonald's, I'm not Nike, I'm not Amazon, I'm just a company doing something quite mundane or something quite simple, or it's not that, so I don't need that kind of branding. What would you say to businesses that might dismiss their own brand as not being something that's exciting enough to have interesting, continuous branding?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that not everything has to be exciting, and not everything has to be kind of for laughs. Ultimately, what I do think though is that, and this is something that I've stood by my entire career in the creative industry, I genuinely believe that people have a sixth sense for quality. I'll put my teeth in. A sixth sense for quality, and they don't quite know often why. So it's a bit like, you look at something, you think, oh, actually that's really smart, or there's a perception, and you think, oh, that looks high quality, or that looks expensive, or to flip it the other way, that looks cheap and cheerful. And actually, creative marketeers can position a look and a feel into their target demographic and their audience type, and that takes real skill, because ultimately, if you're selling something cheap and cheerful and it's designed to be cheap and cheerful, then what you don't want is it to look like a real high order Rolls-Royce type scenario, because people are going to go, there's something not right here, it doesn't fit the bill. And you flip that the other way, if you are selling a Rolls-Royce, or you are selling a high-end, high-order product or service, then there's an expectation that it's going to look and feel a certain way. So I suppose, like, if you take an example like Apple, as a brand, every single thing, everything they do looks and feels right. And that continuity across their marketing output, across the actual products themselves that they design and build and sell, everything across the board, it's Apple. And that doesn't happen accidentally. And what I would say as well is that small businesses, people who wouldn't think this thing even applies to them on any level, can learn and can adopt a tiny part of that. So even if you've got your organization, you've got your company logo, and you've got a company font, and you've got a set of company colors, well, actually, if you just say, right, everything we do is going to fit within that very simple framework. And then also, like in terms of imagery, you say, well, okay, we can go loosey goosey and have a freedom in terms of our imagery and our video output or whatever. But ultimately, there should still be a framework around that. You shouldn't flip flop from completely obscure imagery that has nothing to do with your business to something that is kind of not relevant. You should really need to say, well, actually, this type of imagery or this type of communication fits broadly into what we're doing. And then sorry to just do the other thing as
no,
well.
keep going. You're on a roll.
Well, only that it is important.
Yeah.
If it's just words on a piece of paper, well, that will have some impact, but ultimately there's a different level of impact. Color. We are all programmed to see beyond just what we're reading or just what we're seeing. There's so many subplots at play here, and I think it's really important that smaller businesses that think what they're doing isn't sexy or exciting can really, really learn from, speak to a graphic designer, speak to a marketeer, speak to experts that actually know about this stuff. Because I think you'd be really surprised about the way it gives you an uplift as well in terms of what you're about as a person, or you're about as a small business, or even a larger business. When you look good, you feel good.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how to carry on from that, because that is an incredible thing you've just said. Because actually, I think that so my question would be, when you were saying this about brand consistency, having a set amount of colours or styles, or sort of being aware of it. Say, for example, you're maybe a very small business, a micro business, which I don't really like the term, but it is quite common now. If you're a business with maybe 1 to 4 people working in there, and you might still be quite new, you might not necessarily have the budget to be taking on a long-term design journey or a long-term kind of content creation journey. If you're just starting out and doing it yourself, how can those small businesses keep an awareness or maintain some kind of brand continuity? How can they do that? Because I think when you're a very small business, and a lot of people end up doing it themselves, and they end up running their social media themselves, they end up maybe designing content or advertising themselves, and that is a very, very, very common thing now. How can these small businesses ensure that they maintain that brand continuity?
Well, the first thing I'd suggest is go and talk to a graphic designer.
Even just on a consultancy basis, or
yeah, to be honest with you, most people in the design industry are so kind of happy to chat about what they do. In my experience, that you probably get tons of free advice anyway. Go away and learn. I mean, YouTube is your friend in this scenario. Go and literally just go and understand. Go and understand what it is that we're talking about. So when we're talking about kind of brand guidelines, we're talking about image continuity, colors, fonts, from your video perspective, kind of how you're going to be portrayed online, what people see, how they see you. Go away and learn. Education is brilliant, and and the world is awash with information out there. And also, I think that firstly, I admire anybody that runs a business, literally, whether it's a person on their own, 1 to 4 people. It's a really hard thing to do, running a business. And I admire anybody that sticks their neck out and says, right, I'm gonna go it alone. And I think that ultimately that should be celebrated. And I think that just for having the sheer bottle to start your own company, you should get a pat on the back for. However, and the other thing as well, as I probably mentioned earlier, though, is that I think it's really important to try and have some bigger business philosophies and mentalities in your operation that might feel a bit weird if you're on your own working from home. To go, well, actually, I'm going to build a set of corporate guidelines, but actually, it doesn't need to be a long thing. It can be 5 bullet points, and it can literally be what you stand for, how you want to be perceived. So like your audience out there, if you're selling a service or you're providing a service, well, your audience need to you understand what you're about as a person or as an organization.
So are they almost like business boundaries? Almost?
Business boundaries, and actually look at it, look at it from another person's hilltop. You're sitting there thinking, well, everyone must know the product or service we're offering is great. Well, in reality, why must they know that? Ultimately, you need to look out into your own organization and say, well, how am I perceived? And actually, the other great thing about the world of creativity and image and storytelling and narrative and all that sort of stuff is that you can be a real magpie. You can look at what other people are doing and go, oh, that's so clever. And I'm not suggesting that you just wholesale rip people off. You just wholesale go and nick other people's ideas.
Yeah.
But ultimately, just look around you. Just say, wow, I love what this organization's doing. I love the way that they're portraying themselves. That's a really clever use of wording, or I like the way that they have set up their kind of the whole kind of image piece. And actually just say, well, actually, I'm gonna borrow a little bit of that. I'm gonna take a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. I'm gonna make my own version of it. And don't be afraid. That's the other thing as well. You don't be afraid to experiment with what you're putting together. And there are lots of apps out there at the minute. You can do it yourself, provided you follow some basic rules. Around fonts and colours and all that sort of stuff. But I would suggest that you go away, watch some stuff, talk to people, talk to me, talk to you, talk to graphic designers, and actually get on some forums, ask some questions. Because you'd be surprised. It's amazing how when you start a conversation, how people do open up and they do chat about stuff. Yeah. And you can get lots of advice and support.
Interesting. Well, I think the thing that I would say as well is that I've noticed, if we're thinking about industry trends and styles at the minute, I mean, I've perused the world of social media for a while now, and I like to keep a close eye on what brands are doing, and not like you said to sort of copy directly, but just to see what's trendy at the minute. I mean, obviously you've been in the creative industry a bit longer than I have. You'd have seen how styles and how designs and stuff have transformed, and a bit like clothing, or a bit like sort of how everyone buys similar looks, or things become trendy. The way businesses are designed change over the years, and I've noticed in particular, and I don't know if it's like a kind of a pushback or a sort of a rejection of sort of kind of loudness, but I think there's a real minimalist look going on at the minute. I don't know if you've noticed, whether it's like an Apple effect or whatever, but like I've noticed a lot of brands have kept things very muted and quite simple colors, and it looks almost like a rejection of big, loud, aggressive brands. I don't know. I want your sort of idea on that. Really,
it's cyclical. I mean, as you know, I started off with cave paintings. I mean, I've been around.
Was that you?
I've been around. I've been doing this for a long time. In reality,
well, your bison drawings have gotten significantly better.
Exactly.
Since.
In reality, it's a cycle. Things come, things go, and maybe it reflects maybe what you're observing now, perhaps reflects a kind of a post-pandemic kind of slightly flat economy, slightly people are a little bit edgy about the cost of living, etc. And maybe that's playing out a little bit in in that kind of creative piece. So there are lots of factors at play that determine kind of what's in, what's not. Whether it's brash, whether it's loud, the way that we're communicating is quite different. If you look back at advertising in the press or TV advertising, every decade has its own unique style and unique play on it. At the time, it's just the way it was. You look back now and you think, oh my goodness, that's I don't know, it's sexist, or it's brash, or the claims that are being made are just outrageous, or they're promoting a product in that you'd never imagine you could promote in it that way anymore. So I think that time changes, time marches on, and I think that brilliantly, creativity leads the way and drives is part of that driver.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't, you'd only ever have one design project done, and that would be it forever. I mean, if you are a marketeer, a graphic designer, a user experience creator, content creator, anybody at the forefront of coming up with innovative new ideas to promote a product or service, well, it's great for you that it is an ever-evolving landscape. Because if it wasn't, like I say, you'd do one design job, say thank you very much, and walk away, and that would be it. So in a sense, it's an ever-changing playing field. But I still think in this changing playing field, you still need some rules. So and there are also some expectations. So like I don't know, if you're a funeral director, you're not gonna look at pink balloons as your first sort of image port of call, are you?
There's some really disappointing undertakers out there.
With a kind of like a jolly cartoon sign writer style font. Much the same. Flip that 180 degrees. If you're a party planner and a fun business, you're not going to be black and gold and very sort of Times Roman with some very very stodgy old school type lettering, etc. So ultimately, there's some pretty basic things that the image you are portraying needs to reflect the industry you're in to a certain extent, and that's just to conform. That's just because if you don't, people will go, "Wow, that doesn't work."
There's significantly more with the obviously nowadays compared to maybe even weirdly probably 10 years ago. The visibility businesses have nowadays, it's like you can be everywhere, and there's a real pressure attached to that, particularly when it comes to brand continuity. Back maybe 20 years ago, your brand continuity probably had to cover your print materials, your website, your uniform, probably just your logo. Like, it was probably more corporate stuff. But now your brand continuity, your brand visibility has to go across those, as well as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of your expo stuff, all of your podcast, everything.
Absolutely. And then there's another side of that, of course, which is you've got to consider like tone, language, continuity in approach. It's not, we've jumped in with it's all about fonts, it's all about colors, it's all about imagery that you're using. But actually, it's about what you stand for, what your values are, how trustworthy you are, how continuity in language, continuity in messaging is really, really vital as well. And again, you can and should build a framework around what that feels like, what that looks like, how getting back to that hilltop. How are you perceived? Get people to look in, and the other thing as well is actively ask for and take on board advice from other people. Literally say, I've got this idea, I've got this new product, I've got this service. What do you think of us? Mm-hmm. How do I look to you? And actually be bold and ask other people to comment. Because I mean, you don't have to take on board what they're saying, but actually what you will find is there'll be a percentage of rightness. So if most people say, actually, you look authoritative and you look a solid business, but you might look a bit stodgy and a bit old-fashioned, you haven't got to take on board, right, we are old-fashioned, let's throw out the baby with the bathwater. But what you can do is go, actually, we could jazz things up a little bit and perhaps have a bit more of a younger feel and flavour.
Be daring.
Be a bit more daring. But ultimately, there's always a percentage of truth in feedback. And if you can step away slightly and ask and take on board what the audience that you are. I mean, it's old fashioned market research. So I'm not asking you to go and stand in the street and stop people, but ultimately ask, seek opinion, because I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, and I think, well, I mean, based off of even our own brand and whatever, we stuck our name on the business, and I think that in itself, it's branding and all of this, and seeking advice and seeking feedback. Your brand does become quite personal to you, because it's your heart and soul. It's your business. It's what you've created, and having someone give you feedback that might not be always positive can be quite a difficult experience. But it's definitely worth it. And I think having a bit of distance between you as a person and your brand can have an impact, because we welcome when people give us feedback, but also it can make you go, oh, that's
it can be jarring.
Important to me.
It can be jarring,
but,
and as you say, it's, it is personal. I believe there's a huge misconception put about when people go, oh, it's just business. Don't take it personally. It's just business.
Passion is people, and I think and no matter what you do, there's people behind that brand that put their heart and soul into it, and I think that there's got to be a level of respect there. But then also being able to take on the chin constructive feedback and be able to actually think, okay, how can I build only upwards and take the positives out of it is essential.
I agree. And to kind of finish,
I don't know. We've really gone deep into that.
We have.
That was what I would
one final word of wisdom is that if you can afford it, it is worth investing in expertise. People that do this for a living, do it for a living for a reason. And just because you can make your own designs, it does not make you a graphic designer. It makes you somebody doing their own designs. Mm-hmm. And there are very few things in life that you would think, oh, I can do that. I could do that myself. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, when you're paying an expert, that it frees you up to go and do something else, which is actually running your business, and B, that expert is presenting a solution to you based on often years and years of actual expertise, and it's something I always implore people to do, to actually, when you've got some money, you need some money to set up a business. You can't set up a business with absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. Spend a little bit wisely. Spend a little bit on professional expertise that can really open up a whole world to you that you perhaps never even thought of. And I've been doing this a long time, and I can spot homemade design a mile off.
Absolutely.
It sticks out like a sore thumb, and instantaneously, whatever image you're trying to portray, whatever no matter how you're trying to look, you instantly look like a homemade bedroom outfit. And weirdly, it works. It works back the other way. That sometimes bigger businesses think to themselves, "That's fine. I can do my own stuff," and they do. And it makes them look much smaller and less professional than they could look and should look.
Wow. Okay. Well,
my high horse is here.
I'm looking up at you.
I need to get off this high horse.
Wow.
Now.
No. That is particularly interesting. I mean, I cannot follow that whatsoever. But what I will say is my final point.
Was that ranty?
That wasn't ranty. That was. I feel like I need to put some Independence Day style music underneath it. But what I would say, my final point, from a more of a video perspective and from a content creation perspective, is that if you want that hill to look out on and you want to look at your own brand, having a video made is the best way to do it. Because we have had clients in the past that have had a promo from us, like a kind of outside looking in interviews. This is what we do. This is who we are. And they've actually said to us in the past, businesses who've had promotional films made have said to us, God, I've never seen what we look like from this kind of angle. Or like what I've never seen me present my own business before. I've never seen oh wow, we actually look actually this is quite interesting. Oh, what that person said there, actually that's quite useful. And actually weirdly, we've seen businesses who've the promo they've had made, maybe when they're going through a rebrand or they're starting out, is almost like the basis for a lot of the other things. I say, how many times have we seen stills of our film show up on websites, show up on like as part of their other marketing materials, wording that they used in the film has then complemented other things. Like it is a great tool to be able to actually look at yourself and go, oh, hang on, that's what other people see.
Completely. A brand you need to live up to.
Yes.
Well, no, what I mean is,
Oh no! What?
No. All I was going to say is, if you look the business,
you're setting a high standard.
Yeah, you're setting a high standard.
Right.
It's always better to try and step up, to live up to something, than to almost like than be a bit embarrassed about your own stuff. Okay. So my point was, so. Just to kind of qualify that, it does put a spring in your step when you are living up to the brand and the look that you've created.
And you're setting a standard.
You're
I
setting
like
a
it.
standard.
Well, that was quite a good episode, that actually.
They're all good episodes.
No, I know, but I mean that was I thought we were on our game there. My last thing that I wanted to do, I mean, it's not a silly question this time, but it's something that I saw that I thought was quite interesting that I wanted to go through, which is the etymology of a word.
Okay.
Which is when everyone switches off with those things.
Etymology of a word.
Yeah, so the word that I mean is, what do you think the word decibel, where does that come from?
Decibel. I don't know where it comes from. Deca.
Particularly the latter part of the word.
What, a bell?
Well, I'll go into
Go on. Please, Issy, tell us.
No, because I saw it and I thought, actually, that is quite interesting, particularly. So when you see the word decibel, it's a lowercase d and an uppercase b, isn't it, when it's written out? And that is because Bell is from Alexander Graham Bell. And because it's the bell part, it has a capital B.
That is incredible.
So the word decibel, when you see it, so when in our industry we use the word decibel a lot, and in podcasting the word decibel in audio has a capital B because it's Bell from Alexander Graham Bell.
That's incredible.
Is it? I'm taking it up to 11. I thought that was quite interesting, but that wasn't interesting at all, was it?
That's all right.
Okay, well, that's less fun ending than normal, but that closes that episode. Really, are you happy with that?
Really happy, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll see you next time. And every other Tuesday, is it? Okay, cool. We need to really tighten up this outro, don't we? Right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.